There is something I need you to do tonight, not tomorrow, not after your next doctor's appointment, tonight. And by the end of this video, you will know exactly what it is, exactly why it matters, and exactly what is at stake if you keep doing what most men over 65 do, which is nothing. If you woke up this morning without a morning erection, and that has been true for most mornings over the past year or 2 or 5, I want you to understand something that your doctor has likely never said to you directly. That absence is a red flag, not a yellow flag, not a gentle suggestion to maybe think about your health habits. A red flag, the kind that in any other context would send a man straight to a specialist. The reason most men do not treat it that way is not because they are careless. It is because nobody framed it correctly. Today, I am framing it correctly. I'm Dr. Mariana, a urologist with over a decade of clinical experience working with men on the health questions that sit at the intersection of sexual function, cardiovascular health, and the biology of aging. I want to be honest with you about what tonight's actions can and cannot do. They cannot reverse years of vascular aging in a single evening. What they can do is give your body, tonight during the hours when it runs its most important repair and synthesis processes, the specific inputs it needs to begin working better. And for some men, better begins surprisingly quickly. If you are new here, please subscribe and leave a like. It helps this content reach the men who need it. And drop a comment telling me where you are watching from. This community spans more of the world than you might imagine, and I am grateful for every person in it. Let me start with why this is a red flag. Because I want you to carry this understanding out of this video and into every conversation you have about your health from this point forward. Morning erections are produced by your autonomic nervous system during REM sleep. 3 to 5 times across a healthy night, your brain sends signals that relax the smooth muscle inside the penis, blood flows in, and an erection occurs. The one you notice at waking is the last of these overnight cycles. This process is not primarily about sexual readiness. It is a vascular maintenance routine. Your body delivering oxygenated blood to penile tissue, preserving smooth muscle elasticity, and testing the responsiveness of the endothelial cells that line your blood vessels. Those endothelial cells are the same type of cells lining your coronary arteries. Their responsiveness is a systemic property. When penile endothelial function declines, coronary endothelial function has typically been declining for years already. The penis is more peripheral, more sensitive to early vascular change, and therefore the first place the decline becomes visible. What you are not noticing in the morning is a window into what is happening, silently, asymptomatically, in your heart. This is not speculation. The relationship between erectile dysfunction and cardiovascular disease is one of the most robustly established associations in modern urology and cardiology. Men with erectile difficulties have a significantly elevated risk of major cardiovascular events, heart attack, stroke, cardiac death, that is independent of traditional risk factors like cholesterol and blood pressure. The sexual symptom is the early signal. The cardiac event, if the underlying process goes unaddressed, is the late consequence. A man who treats the absence of morning erections as an embarrassing inconvenience rather than a cardiovascular symptom is, in a very real clinical sense, ignoring a warning his body has been sending him every single morning. I want to pause here and ask you something. How many mornings have you woken up, noticed the absence, and actively chosen not to think about it? Drop a comment below. Be honest, even if the number is large. You are not alone, and your honesty helps every other man watching this feel less isolated in an experience they have been carrying silently. Now let us talk about tonight, specifically what you can do in the next few hours that directly supports the overnight processes your body needs to run. The first thing to do tonight is to stop doing something rather than start. If you have a drink in the evening, wine with dinner, a beer afterward, a nightcap before sleep, I want you to move it earlier or skip it entirely tonight and for the next 30 days. Alcohol consumed within 3 hours of sleep suppresses REM sleep architecture in a dose-dependent, well-documented way. It reduces the time your brain spends in the stage where nocturnal erections occur. It impairs the autonomic signaling that triggers smooth muscle relaxation. And it increases inflammation in vascular tissue, the opposite of what a man trying to restore endothelial function needs. This is the single highest leverage change most men over 65 can make tonight, because it removes an active suppressor of the very process you are trying to restore. It costs nothing. It requires no trip to a pharmacy. It begins working on the very first night you do it. The second thing to do tonight is to prepare a specific bedtime drink, and I want to be precise about what goes in it and why. Dissolve 1 teaspoon of organic beetroot powder in a glass of warm water. Add 200 to 300 milligrams of magnesium glycinate or magnesium citrate, available in most pharmacies as a powder that dissolves cleanly. If you have zinc bisglycinate or zinc picolinate at home, add 25 to 30 milligrams. Drink this 30 to 60 minutes before sleep. Here is the mechanism behind each ingredient. Beetroot powder is one of the most concentrated dietary sources of inorganic nitrates available. Your body converts those nitrates, through bacterial action on the tongue and in the gut, into nitric oxide, the molecule responsible for vascular smooth muscle relaxation. Peak nitrate conversion occurs 2 to 3 hours after consumption, which means drinking beetroot before bed aligns the nitric oxide production window with your early overnight REM cycles. Magnesium is a required cofactor for nitric oxide synthase, the enzyme that produces nitric oxide in your endothelial cells. Without adequate magnesium, nitric oxide production is throttled regardless of nitrate intake. Magnesium also regulates cortisol, which suppresses testosterone synthesis when elevated, and supports the sleep architecture that REM erections depend on. Zinc supports testosterone synthesis in the Leydig cells, inhibits the aromatase enzyme that converts testosterone to estrogen, and serves as an additional cofactor in the nitric oxide pathway. These three ingredients address three different nodes of the same underlying system. Together, timed to the overnight window, they give your body what it needs to run its maintenance cycle more completely. The third thing to do tonight is to set a consistent sleep and wake time, and keep it, starting now. This sounds deceptively simple, and I want to explain why it is actually one of the most powerful interventions available. REM sleep is not distributed evenly across the night. The majority of REM occurs in the final 2 to 3 hours of sleep. A man who sleeps 6 hours instead of 7.5 loses a disproportionate amount of his REM, not 1/5 less, but potentially half or more of his total REM time. That is half or more of his nocturnal erection cycles eliminated not by vascular disease, but by insufficient sleep duration. Inconsistent sleep timing fragments circadian rhythm, further reducing REM quality. Tonight, decide what time you need to wake up tomorrow and count back 7.5 to 8 hours. That is your bedtime. Protect it. The fourth thing is to do 10 minutes of light movement before your bedtime drink. A short walk, bodyweight squats, anything that elevates your heart rate mildly for 10 minutes. The mechanism is direct. Physical activity stimulates nitric oxide production in the vascular endothelium through mechanical shear stress, the physical force of blood moving more rapidly through vessels during exercise. Even brief, mild exertion produces a measurable increase in circulating nitric oxide that persists for several hours. Combined with the dietary nitrates from the beetroot powder, a short evening walk creates a dual pathway nitric oxide boost timed to the overnight window. This is not about fitness. It is about priming the vascular system for the maintenance cycle that is about to run. Let me tell you about George. He was 68 when he came to see me for a prostate checkup, and the morning erection conversation arose, as it often does in my practice, almost as an afterthought at the end of the appointment. He mentioned it in the way men mention things they have already made peace with, briefly, with a slight wave of the hand, as if to signal that he was not asking for help, just noting a fact. I did not let it pass. When I asked him directly how long it had been, he thought about it and said probably 4 years. He had been taking a blood pressure medication for 3 of those years and had never been told it could affect nocturnal function. His magnesium, when we tested it, was at the lower edge of normal, technically not deficient but insufficient for optimal enzymatic function. He drank 2 glasses of wine most evenings, typically within an hour of sleep. He slept 6 hours most nights because he woke early for work and went to bed late from habit. Every single one of those factors was addressable. We changed his blood pressure medication to one with a lower burden on vascular and sexual function. We started his bedtime drink routine. We moved his wine to earlier in the evening. We extended his sleep by 60 to 90 minutes through a consistent earlier bedtime. At 10 weeks, he came back and said something I have heard variations of many times and never tire of, that he had not realized how much he had quietly grieved this until it began coming back. That the return of something he had written off as permanently gone made him feel, in his words, like his body was still on his side. That is what I want for every man watching this. Your body is still on your side. Give it what it needs tonight. I want to speak to the men watching this who are in the category I know is well represented in this audience. Men who have been dismissing this for years, who have constructed an internal narrative in which this change is simply the dignified acceptance of getting older, and who feel something shifting as they watch this video. I want to name that shift directly. It is not panic, it is recognition. The recognition that a symptom you filed under aging actually belongs under investigation. That the story you told yourself was the only story available because nobody gave you a better one. I am giving you a better one now. Tonight is a completely reasonable place to start. You do not need a new prescription, a specialist referral, or a dramatic lifestyle overhaul. You need to skip the nightcap, mix a drink with 3 ingredients, take a 10-minute walk, and go to bed on time. That is tonight. The rest unfolds from there. Here is your complete action summary for tonight and the 30 days that follow. Tonight, no alcohol within 3 hours of sleep. 30 minutes before bed, 10 minutes of light movement, then your bedtime drink. Warm water with beetroot powder, magnesium glycinate, and zinc bisglycinate. Set a consistent sleep time that gives you 7.5 to 8 hours. Tomorrow, book a blood panel that includes testosterone, fasting insulin, high-sensitivity CRP, zinc, and magnesium. Review your current medications with your doctor and ask specifically whether any of them are known to affect erectile or nocturnal function. Add 1 nitrate-rich food, beetroot, spinach, rocket, or pomegranate, to your daily diet. Repeat tonight's routine every night for 30 days before evaluating. Your 30-day challenge is simply this. Do tonight's routine every night for 30 days without exception. Not most nights, every night. Consistency is the mechanism. 1 night of optimal conditions does not restore a system that has been running below capacity for years. 30 nights of consistent support begins to shift the baseline. That is what you are building. If this video reached you at the right moment, please subscribe and leave a like. Share it with a man you care about who needs to hear that this symptom is worth taking seriously. And in the comments below, tell me one thing. What are you doing differently tonight because of this video? That is your comment. One specific action. I will be reading every single one. Aging is not the end of vitality. It is an invitation to live smarter.